Hello everyone. We finally have an update on the case of 6-year-old Jalaya Eason, who was found dead inside of her mother's apartment closet back in May of 2023. Meaning it's been about a year for anything to move in this case. And it's a case that was extremely upsetting to a lot of people, including myself. Not only because it seemed like CPS dropped the ball when it came to Jalaya and her two siblings, who were also showing extremely concerning signs of abuse, but more so because their mother Lynija seemed to be the center of all of this, yet she was seemingly set free with no consequences.
Early Friday morning, a frantic 911 call came in from the 12th floor of this South Bronx apartment building. The caller said that her 6-year-old wasn't breathing. She was cold to the touch, and she was trying to give the girl CPR. EMS raced her to the hospital. The child didn't survive.
I'm just so heartbroken to hear that baby died.
I'm so heartbroken.
Investigators tell News 4 the young girl had a rash and bruising on her wrists and other parts of her body. Detectives immediately took the girl's mother to the 42nd precinct for questioning. People who live in the same 165th Street and Tinton Avenue complex say they saw the woman often, telling us that she was a regular on the playground with her kids. They described her as warm, friendly, and on occasion they'd see her take her kids to school.
I always see her with her kids. She took them to school, brought them back. I'm on a PTA. I always see her.
We found out the police are talking to the woman's two other children. One is 8, the other is 3 years old. Their crushed neighbors left wondering what happened to their sister.
This is disgusting. I don't even know her and I'm hurt.
Now, I definitely recommend going and watching the other 2 previous videos that I did covering this case, because if you haven't, you probably won't understand what's going on in this video. But I went through all of the horrific details that had played out, going from Jalaya's body being discovered to neighbors claiming they heard her screaming for help, yet no one did anything.
The mother claims she was home with her 3 children and woke during the night to find Jalaya unconscious with marks on her wrist and torso.
Anyone that live close enough can hear those kids from time to time.
This neighbor, who lives 1 floor below, questioned that day if the mother was telling the full truth. She described on several occasions hearing children crying, running back and forth. Their screams at times were deafening.
Anybody who's a mom who has kids is heartbreaking.
To her father, who seemingly was unaware of anything happening in the home. Well, I can finally come and sit down here with you all today and say that we may be getting justice for little Jalaya. Her mother, 27-year-old Lynija Eason Kumar now, was finally arrested just days ago. And I've seen 2 different articles that stated her charges. In one article, it stated she was being charged with murder and manslaughter, but then in another article, I've seen she's being charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. Either way, she is being charged essentially with manslaughter/murder, it seems like, which is exactly what we've all been screaming from the rooftops for. But she is thankfully being held without bail. But what's even more awful are the details coming out surrounding Jalaya's murder, because we can now officially say she was murdered. And the details of the awful torture that her mother was putting her and her siblings through is just, it's insane. And this is just the surface of what has come out so far. And I'm sure there are so many other details out there that police have not revealed because they're keeping it quiet for this court case. So let's jump back to the day that little Jalaya was discovered deceased. When authorities arrived to the 12th floor apartment and Jalaya was found inside of that closet, unconscious, and was taken to hospital, she was not only found to be not responsive, but she also had bruising and trauma on her wrists and chest, and she would later be pronounced dead at the hospital. And Jalaya's autopsy cited even worse details, saying she was found covered in bruises and scars, both new and old ones healing, including ligature marks on her wrists. She was also said to be extremely underweight. Now, please be prepared, because the next details from the criminal complaint detail how they suspect Jalaya was murdered. The criminal complaint alleges that her mother Lynija tied her wrists and feet together. She then hung Jalaya in the closet and repeatedly struck her with a hard object. After the beating, she was then left in the closet. And as we know from previous information, neighbors would later tell reporters and police that they heard little Jalaya screaming for her life as she was being attacked and beaten over and over again in that closet. Yet no one came to help her. No one stopped Lynija. One neighbor saying, and I quote, "She kept saying, 'Stop, stop, stop.' You could hear the thumps, bro." End quote. It's sickening. It's just absolutely sickening and heartbreaking that this little girl was being hung in a closet and was screaming for someone to help her. And people heard her and did nothing. It's awful. It's just, It's ridiculous. The court documents reading, and I quote, "Her cause of death was determined to be child abuse, including restraint, suspension, positional asphyxia, blunt force injuries of multiple ages, and malnourishment." End quote. Meaning that Jalaya died not only because she was beat to death, but because of the position that she was being hung in that closet, she died from asphyxia. So she essentially suffocated as well to death, which is just, this poor little girl was just begging for help. It's awful. This case as a whole is just awful. And the fact that no one is really speaking about this makes it even worse, because this could be happening to another child out there right this second. That's what's so terrifying. People just don't say anything. People keep quiet because they don't want to cause trouble. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. They don't want to put themselves in the line of fire. And then we have things like this happen where a little girl is literally beaten to death by her own mother in an apartment building with people hearing every single detail and noise, yet nothing happens. It's allowed to happen. And we all wondered why Jalaya looked so terrified in one of those last videos that was taken and posted of her by her own mother. And I'm pretty sure it was on her birthday.
Hey girl. Hey girl.
Hi.
Is your birthday?
Uh-huh.
Why you look weird? Hey birthday girl.
Hi.
Give me a piece on. Ooh.
And she looked so scared and terrified of her mother in that video. This is why. This poor little girl is being attacked over and over again by the one person who should be loving and caring and protecting her. But it wasn't just Jalaya. It was her siblings as well that were being neglected and abused. And the fact that only Jalaya died is honestly a miracle, because her siblings were being just as attacked and just as abused. We spoke in part 1 about the abuse and CPS calls that were placed on her 8-year-old brother. He was also found to have countless small lacerations in various stages of healing on his back, scalp, arms, and legs. He also had a cut on his forehead and a deep cut that was healing on his scalp. As we talked about in the first video, when the 8-year-old brother went to school with a swollen and bruised face, his teachers brought concern into it. They were very concerned, and when they asked him what happened, he told his teachers that his mother punched him in the face and kicked him because he tried to drink water from the tap. This little boy was thirsty, and he went to the sink to try to drink water, and instead his mother physically beat him. She punched him in the face and kicked him for wanting water. It's horrific. And just to think that that was happening and she was letting him go to school like that, and teachers were trying to draw attention to it, yet nothing happened. It's infuriating. And that's why people are so pissed off about this. After we see what happened with little Gabriel, there's literally a Netflix documentary of the exact same thing happening to a little boy who kept going to school. Teachers kept trying to call attention to it, yet nothing was changing until he was dead. He was beaten to death by his own mother and her boyfriend until he was dead. And the same thing happened here with Jalaya. She was beaten to death by her mother, allegedly at this point, but we do know now she's being arrested and being charged with her murder. But until she's legally proven to have in the court of law, it's so infuriating. I'm sorry. This case really makes me mad. The fact that it just keeps happening over and over again is what makes me mad. We see these prime examples of cases that blow up and go viral, yet nothing changes. The same thing was happening with Jalaya and her siblings. Her brother was going to school. Teachers were calling CPS. He had visible signs of being attacked. He admitted his mother punched him in the face, yet nothing changed. It's awful. Kids kept being sent back home to be beaten on again and again until Jalaya died. And it wasn't just signs of him being physically abused. He was also often absent from school, which is another sign of, child abuse. And he would also show up to school with dirty clothes on, the same clothes sometimes for days and days and days, which is another sign that we see. But it wasn't just Jalaya and her 8-year-old brother, it was also her 3-year-old sister. When police arrived to the apartment and took the surviving children away, her 3-year-old sister was shown to have a long discolored scar on the right side of her waist. Why she had that scar? I truly wonder what Lynija might have done to the little 3-year-old, a literal toddler. And the 3-year-old also had a widespread discolored rash on her inner thighs and buttocks, which makes me speculate if her diapers weren't being changed often, if she wasn't potty trained yet, or if she just wasn't being cleaned properly. Because, the 8-year-old brother also was often wearing dirty clothes. As we know, that apartment was absolutely filthy. These children were just completely not taken care of, it seems. Completely. Now, in the aftermath, it seems like police also found there have been several calls for DV to the address as well. Again, we know CPS was involved at some point, yet Nothing seemed to happen. So what did authorities do when Jalaya was found deceased and her 2 siblings were removed from the home? Well, Lynija was initially charged with endangering the welfare of 2 other children. Jalaya's 2 younger siblings were taken into CPS custody, but despite all of this, one of her children being found dead and the other 2 children found in the states that they were in, Lynija was granted supervised release without bail on those charges, which is awful to just think that this woman was basically let free on minor charges after all that was found in that home, after her daughter was literally murdered. And as I said, it wasn't just that. The children were also living in an absolute filthy apartment with Lynija. There was rotting food, there was feces and urine everywhere, there was an insect infestation. And when I spoke about all of this, people were outraged. I still get comments till this very day about Jalaya's story, because it seemed like Lynija essentially gotten away with all this until just this week, nearly a year later. And I truly don't know what took place so fucking long to charge Lynija with murder, considering she literally admitted to being the only adult in that apartment. So who the hell else murdered her daughter then? Especially with the way they describe her autopsy, she had literal ligature marks. She didn't do that to herself, that's for sure. She didn't lock herself in a closet and tie herself up and beat herself. And I understand usually processing takes a long time. They have to usually prove that someone did something in order to charge them with murder. They usually want to get all their ducks in a row. But what ducks did they really need to get in a row here? Everything was just laid out to them and she literally admitted to being the only one there that could have done it. I don't know. I truly am curious. I'm very curious why it took them nearly a year to go through with charges with this. But I guess at least we can finally say something is happening. Lynija is finally going to have to answer for everything that she did, and hopefully Jalaya can get some justice. You know, because that sweet little girl, she just needed a hug from someone that loved her and who cared about her. Yet she was strung up in a closet and beaten to death. It's horrific. It truly is horrific. Again, the fact that she was begging for help and no one helped her. This woman, Lynija, is an absolute monster. And I think you can already tell that karma's catching up with her, because she doesn't look anything like she did last year. I'm usually not into pointing out people's appearances, but I think we can make an exception with this one. So that is what we have right now. If there is an abundance of information that comes out on Jalaya's case with trial or anything like that, I will keep you all updated, because as I said, not many people are talking about this, and Jalaya's story deserves to be out there. No one wanted to listen to her when she was begging for help, but we're going to continue to speak for her now. We're going to continue to spread her word and her story now. I know it's not going to change what happened, but hopefully we can make a change for another child in the future. So let's have a conversation down below. How are you feeling about this new information? Is there anything I didn't include in here that you know about? Let's chat about it below. And as always, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors. And if you hear something, please say something so that we don't have another Jalaya, another Gabriel out there. And with that, I hope to see you in the next video.